Good morning once again, and welcome to another session of Azure Power Lunch. As you know, we record these channel and place our recordings on our YouTube channel. So if you don't want to be recorded, you may want to drop off now. Second thing that I want to mention is that this is going to be our last session for the year. We will be back in the second week of, or yeah, third week of um, January, which is January 19th. So we will be back on January 19th. So we will be off for 4 weeks. So just wanna give everybody a heads up that we'll be back on 19th. And with that, let's go ahead and because it's in the US, it's a Christmas and a New Year holiday. So let's start with our session. So today we are going to be talk about Azure SQL Trigger for Azure Function. So this is just gone GA. I think we have talked about Azure Functions before, but there are certain things that I wanted to talk about here. And by the way, this is in GA now, just gone GA. So the preview tag is wrong. I will remove that tag from here. So first of all, uh, what I mean, why this trigger is important. The reason being that, you know, no matter how we go with NoSQL databases, SQL databases are there. You need to get notifications and you need to maybe send alerts to other system when things change in the database. So instead of like doing something custom where you rely on actual SQL Server triggers and do something custom, you can actually rely on Azure Functions to get that notification based on the Azure SQL trigger, and that's how you can create notifications, send messages, or kind of log the updates. Or let's say that there is a database where something like an order has changed, so you can send information to the customer about that order or something like that. Just keep in mind that it works with both consumption functions and dedicated functions. So there are, as you know, that there are three plans for Azure Functions. One is a consumption plan, which is basically you run it in the public cloud, and in that case, when the function runs, you pay only when it is running. Okay, and of course, you cannot have VNet integration or things like that. Then you have the Elastic Premium plan, which is function specific. In that case, you can have pre-warm instances. It can do VNet integration, but just keep in mind that you will be paying for the pre-warm instances while um, your function is running. So you don't pay for consumption, you pay for the instances. The third one is the dedicated plan. Dedicated plan is when you create an app service plan, just like you run an app service on top of it, then you run function on top of it. The reason why I'm talking about it, just keep in mind that the scalability of this trigger relies on the works only on the dedicated plan or the premium function plan. If you have a consumption plan, the scaling out of function will not work. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So let's move on. Okay, how this function works. So first of all, it relies on it works on Azure SQL, SQL Managed Instance, SQL Server. Okay, and at a high level, it's kind of a think of it. It's looping, it's checking for changes. So there is a loop that goes in and gets a list of max number of changes. If there are any changes, it gets up to the max number, and we will talk about that as well. And then calls the trigger function. Okay, and then it waits for the delay, and that delay is also configurable. If you don't want to use the default one is I think 1000 millisecond. It will send that. It will again run in that loop. So think of it. There is something happening um, on the SQL Server side, and it's kind of a looping through it, and checking for changes. As it sees changes, it raises the trigger. Okay. And just keep in mind, the changes are processed in the order they're happening. So the last changes that happen will come first. Okay. So just keep that in mind. And this is some information that will help you understand. So let's say that there is a row that has changed, that has like 4 columns. And while this loop was in the wait mode, 2 fields changed. Okay. And as the 2 fields changed, it was still in the wait mode, then it's check for the changes. It will send you 1 change. It will not send you 2 changes. Okay, because while in the wait mode, it will batch those changes up and send you a single batch. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So these are some of the things that you should be aware of how it process changes. By the way, can everybody hear me? Great, thank you. Sorry guys, I thought I had a disturbance with my headphone. That's okay. So let's move on. Okay, these are the some of the configuration that governs. You can put them in the app configuration file if you want. And normally you when you are planning to make these changes, anything that is the default, you want to change it, you have to be kind of very clear about it. So first is SQL trigger batch size, that is 100. So at one time, it will take 100 batch of change and send it. Okay, that's one thing. So just keep that in mind. Second part is the trigger polling interval in millisecond. This is how it polls. Remember, I said that this is a polling that is happening, is checking the table, and that for any changes, that's that's something that has to be that you can configure. So 1000 millisecond or 1 second um, is the default. You want to change it. And the last part is the number of max changes per worker. How max change? So let's say that you have a lot of changes happening in the database, you know, and you have triggered. How it will scale out? That is 1000. So basically, after 1000 changes per worker per table, it's gonna start the scale out process. So it's gonna start creating new workers. Okay. So that's how these default changes work. So what we're gonna do now is, as usual, we're gonna just jump into a quick demo, and I know you will see the demo in C sharp. That's my favorite language, but just keep in mind there's very few lines of code. Most of the code is just kind of a boilerplate and show you what values being used and things like that. So yeah, don't worry about it if you don't know C sharp. The code is just there for reference, and I will explain everything. Okay. So first of all, I have a database. Okay, and as you can see, I have some tables there, and as I have been playing around with it, so let's go in and create a new table. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to create a table called APL task. And just keep in mind, the trigger is table specific. So let's say that you have 10 tables in a database and you want to trigger on all of them. You will have to create 10 triggers. Got it? So I'm going to paste it. This is the table that I want to create. And I think it should have created the table. So let's go in. Yes, APL task has been created. The second part is the most important piece, and that is, let me go in here. So first thing first, you'll have to change the database to set the change tracking on. It relies on SQL Server change tracking, Azure SQL or SQL Managed Instance change tracking. Okay, and then you have to enable change tracking for the table as well. Got it? So once these are the two statements that you will have to run after, before you actually even create the trigger. Okay, so let's run it, and you will see one error. I mean, since I have already set up change tracking on this database, you can see that this call has failed, but that's fine. The second call is successful because this table is new. So it means the change tracking is already enabled. Okay. With that, let's now start creating our trigger function. Okay. So I'm going to create Visual Studio, start with Visual Studio, and I'm going to create a new project. And next. In the meantime, any questions? Okay. And yeah, let's use .NET 6.0 port. It's going to create the function project. And now let's add a function to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say add new item, and I'm going to create a function and I'm going to call it dbfunc. Okay. As soon as I pick the Azure function, it's going to ask me what type of function is it, SQL trigger. I'm going to do that. It's going to ask me two things. It's going to ask me what is the um, name of the connection string setting. Okay, that's the one thing it's going to ask. The second thing, what table it's going to be applied to. I know the table name, APL task, and for the um, for the connection string setting, let's get the name. I'm going to use this name for that. Hold on a second. So this is my connection string setting. Okay, that's it. And I'm gonna add the code. And let's go through the code now. Okay. So first of all, as you can see, it creates a function, and okay, and it creates a kind of a data structure. It doesn't know what table you have. Okay, so it just create a data structure to do item, and that are its values. But the table that we have created, I am going to create a C# representation of it. As you know, in that table we had an ID tag, we had a title, we had a status. I just put in here, and I'm going to change that here as well. So this become APL task, and this is asking for a reference update. So I'm going to update the reference. So if you see here, it is trigger. This is the connection string. This one is the table on which we are going to be checking for changes. And then this is the collection that will have the changes in it. I mean, here what we are doing is we're just putting out changes and serializing it and putting out changes here. I'm going to add a few lines of code here as well. I'm going to add this, and I'm going to make some changes here. Okay, just to meet my. So basically, what I'm doing is I'm going through the changes and putting out like, hey, what was the change operation, and what was the task ID, and all that stuff. Wonderful stuff. And just keep in mind the change of dot operation is an enumeration. This one here, 0 is for insert, 2 is for update, 1 is for update, and 2 is for delete. So that's the change dot operation. Okay, that's that. Okay, once we are here, the last thing we need to do is update the localhost.json. So what I'm gonna do, I have some code, some configuration here that I am going to replace the values with. Okay. So this is the database connection string and all that stuff. So now, sorry, I need to remove this. Um, Yeah, that's fine. So this is all the values that I need to add the connection string. I think the to-do URI, it's no longer applicable to this one. It's from some different project. Okay, so just copy and pasting. With that, our our trigger is ready. So let's run it. Okay, so now we are running the trigger, and give it a second. So this is the console, and I am going to bring this up. What's happening here? Give it a second. Yeah, so it's coming up. Function core tools. I mean, normally when there is a demo, things tend to slow down a little bit, but let it come up. Okay. And it's gonna populate the trigger. So give it a second. Okay, so it says it has detected the trigger. Everything is all set. And what we're gonna do is we are going to go to APL task and we say edit data. Okay. And here are the 3 items, and I'm gonna do a create new row. I'm gonna call 1, title is work, status is 3. I'm gonna step out of it and save the changes. Watch this. So you see operation 0, item ID 1, title work 3. So it is telling you that there is an insert of these values that has happened. Okay, and just keep in mind. And let me show you one other thing. So let's change the status to 2, step out, let's save it. And this time, operation is 1. Remember, it's an update. So operation is 1, and these are the value that is, it gives you the updated value. Okay. So let's add an other row now. So we are going to do 2, title, let's say eat, and status is 0. Once again, step out, save. As you can see here, once again, this has um, you know done it. So okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to delete a row. So discard it, and yeah. So you see here the delete row is there, and I'm gonna go in and delete that row. Okay. Um, And by the way, if you see in the um, update here, you can see that it has new changes detected. And in the new change, it's telling you that, it has updated the value of, from a number to a different number. Okay. So now let's delete this row. Okay. Delete, the row has been deleted, and I save it. And as you see here, new change detected, operation is 2. Okay, and this is the item. And interestingly, it only shows us the foreign key of the item. Okay, it doesn't tell us that. That's because, that's how it works. So basically, it just tells you that this row has been deleted. Okay, very simple. And in this scenario, as you can see here, we are able to get the information uh, from the database of what changes are happening. Just think of it. I mean, this is a very simple table, few fields, but there may be a number of tables, a number of fields that are changing, and you get notification. What you can do is you can have this trigger and only get notified if something important change. Like let's say the customer contact change, then you may want to send an email to the customer, hey, or something in that scenario. So that's how this thing works. And I want to show you. Let me go back to Visual Studio. Let's stop it. I have already have a trigger deployed, in Azure. And let's go to that, and let's take a look at it. So I'm going to go in here, and this time I'm going to open. Let me close this thing, and let me bring this up. So I have a let's go in here. I have this function here that's already running, and let me go into the log stream and let's expand it so we can see the log stream completely. And what I'm going to do is and on the right hand side, I have a API. I have an API that is built against the table. So this is the table I want to show you here. Give me 1 second. This is the table, DBO task that I have, and I built an API against it. It's kind of let's take a look at all the rows. This is some of the items in that table, as you can see here. And what I'm doing is I am I'm gonna be updating this table through the APIs, and you will see in the trigger here once those changes will happen. So let's do first insert. So I'm gonna insert an item. Um, so let's run this API and okay, hold on. So I think I am not using the right API here. Give me 1 second. Hold on. Yes, sorry, I should be running this project. Let me minimize it. Let me minimize this one, and let me run this project here. Yes. So this is just an API that I'm going to be running locally. So let's run this. Give it a second. Let it come up. Come on. Okay, so all the APIs came up, and let me bring my testing tool now. This one and this one, both are here. So now let me try to insert through the APIs, make the call, sending the message. Oops, I had a breakpoint I did not realize. Let me just run it. Okay, so it has been inserted, and let's see if it is showing up here. As you can see here, it's showing the. So just so now this is running in Azure, so you can see this is detecting changes and all that. So first I was running it locally, now I'm running in Azure, and here I am updating an item number 5. I am calling. I'm updating this, and here we go. You see, now this is an update. So as you can see here, this tells you executed DB function task, and it's change operation update. You know, ID is this, title, and all that. So basically, all of this information you can see coming through as a part of the trigger. So that's all I wanted to show. How I hope you now have a better understanding with Azure Function, Azure SQL Function Trigger. And any questions? I would like to open up the floor for any questions. So, folks, if there are no questions, thank you for joining. And just want to give you a heads up that we won't have any session for the next 4 weeks. We will come back on 19th of January. Okay, so this is because of the holidays. So I hope everybody have a safe holiday season and a very happy new year. Once again, thank you for joining and hope to see you guys in 4 weeks.